Sarah Mitchell was the only woman on the EOD team, and everyone knew why she was there. She was filling a quota. The 32-year-old explosives expert was someone who wasn't given a voice in team meetings, was kept away from dangerous missions, and wasn't even included in some training sessions. "We wouldn't want to mess up that pretty face," Sergeant Donovan would joke to the other men, from a distance where Sarah could hear. During a patrol in the Helmand Valley, when the unit came under heavy fire and their only escape route was lined with extremely complex IEDs, Sarah quietly stepped forward. Team leader Captain Rivera initially tried to stop her. "Mitchell, fall back. This is above your level." Sarah had simply said, "No, it's not, sir," and began working without her protective gear. No one knew that she was known as the ghost surgeon in the world's most elite anti-terrorism unit, an expert who had neutralized 147 explosives across 3 continents. Welcome to Best Honor Stories. Before we continue, tell us in the comments which city in the world you're watching this video from today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be remembered, hit that subscribe button to help us preserve these valuable memories. Afghanistan's Helmand province was one of the hottest zones in America's longest war. Among rugged hills, narrow passages, and seemingly endless poppy fields, American soldiers were engaged in a never-ending battle with Taliban militants. The region had claimed more American lives than almost any other province, with IEDs being the weapon of choice for insurgents. In this dangerous environment, perhaps the most dangerous job belonged to the Explosive Ordnance Disposal EOD teams. Their life expectancy in the field was measured in months, not years. They walked where others feared to tread, deliberately approaching the very devices designed to cause maximum carnage. The 73rd EOD Unit at Kandahar Air Base was an elite team that operated in Afghanistan's most challenging regions. The unit's primary mission was to detect and neutralize improvised explosive devices (IEDs) that the Taliban placed along roadsides, inside buildings, and sometimes even under corpses. This was a job that required extraordinary technical skill, coolness under pressure, and courage. The unit's newest member, Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, had been assigned to Kandahar 6 months ago. At 32, Sarah had graduated from West Point with an engineering degree, then completed EOD training, one of the military's most challenging courses. She had finished at the top of her class, displaying an almost intuitive understanding of explosive devices. On paper, she was a perfect candidate. In reality, Sarah was the unit's outcast. From the moment she arrived at the 73rd, Sarah had faced subtle resistance. No one openly questioned her qualifications, but their actions spoke volumes. She was consistently assigned to support roles, kept away from actual disposal operations, and frequently the target of jokes that thinly veiled the unit's skepticism about a woman's place in EOD work. "Hey, beauty, bring me my coffee," called Sergeant Mike Donovan before the team's morning meeting. The other men laughed, watching Sarah's reaction from the corner of their eyes. Donovan, a burly former football player with 16 years of service, had made it his personal mission to test Sarah's resolve. Sarah didn't respond to his baiting. She just filled the coffee thermos and moved to the team room. She had learned that engaging only encouraged them, and her West Point training had taught her when to pick her battles. The team room walls displayed photos of successfully neutralized IEDs, each labeled with the technician's name who had disarmed it. After 6 months, not a single photo bore Sarah's name, not because she lacked ability, but because she had never been given the chance to prove herself in the field. Team leader Captain Carlos Rivera entered the room and started the meeting. "Okay, folks, we have a patrol in northern Helmand today. Intelligence reports increased IED activity in the area. Satellite imagery shows disturbed Earth patterns at these coordinates," he said, pointing to several locations on the map projected on the wall. Rivera showed the region on the map and began explaining the mission details. Sarah listened carefully, taking notes on potential trigger mechanisms and regional IED signatures. However, once again, she wasn't given an active role in the assignment. "Donovan, you'll start from point A. Rodriguez, you'll check the western bank. Miller, you'll take the eastern approach. Parker and Davis, you'll provide overwatch." When he finally turned to Sarah, his tone shifted slightly. "Mitchell, you'll handle equipment check and support from the second vehicle. Keep communications open and ensure the detection gear is functioning properly. Each man was given a specific area of responsibility with actual field operations. Sarah was only assigned equipment check and support again. It was the EOD equivalent of being asked to take notes during a meeting. When the meeting ended, Sarah stopped Rivera as he was leaving. 6 months of patience had earned her nothing. It was time to be more direct. "Captain, if I may, I'd like to take an active role in the field today," she said. Keeping her voice professional but firm, Rivera paused for a moment, studied her face, and seemed to weigh his response. "Mitchell, you're not ready yet. Gain a few more months of experience, then we'll see." "With all due respect, sir, I completed EOD training at the top of my class, and I've been here for 6 months without a single field opportunity. When will I be considered ready?" Sarah maintained eye contact, refusing to be dismissed. Rivera sighed, glancing around to ensure they weren't overheard. "This isn't West Point, Mitchell. Out here theory meets reality in explosive ways. One mistake doesn't mean a bad grade. It means body bags." He lowered his voice. "The men aren't comfortable having you in high-risk situations yet. Give it time." "The men aren't comfortable," Sarah repeated flatly. "Sir, I'm not here to make anyone comfortable. I'm here to do my job, the job I was trained for. When the time comes, Mitchell, for now check the equipment. That's also a critical task." Rivera's tone made it clear the discussion was over. Sarah didn't say anything else. Being in an EOD team was already difficult, especially as a woman, but in the 73rd Unit, it had become almost impossible for Sarah. The convoy rolled out at 100 hours, 5 armored vehicles moving through the dusty landscape of Helmand. Sarah sat in the second vehicle, monitoring communications equipment and running diagnostics on the detection gear. It was important work, but far from where she belonged. 4 hours later, the patrol was proceeding as planned. The team was scanning potential IED-planted roads, examining suspicious objects, and occasionally talking to local villagers. They had already cleared 3 suspected devices, all simple pressure plate IEDs with minimal explosive charge. In the afternoon, with the sun high overhead and temperatures exceeding 110°F, the situation suddenly changed. "Contact! Contact! We're under fire," shouted the driver of the lead vehicle over the radio. The sharp crack of small arms fire echoed across the valley, followed by the distinctive thump of an RPG launcher. The convoy quickly stopped, and the soldiers got out of the vehicles and took defensive positions. Sarah grabbed her rifle and moved to cover, scanning the hills around them. The fire was coming from elevated positions on 3 sides, a classic Taliban ambush. "We need to pull back," shouted Sergeant Rodriguez after a particularly close burst of gunfire kicked up dust near his position. "We're exposed here." Rivera requested reinforcements via radio, then gave the order, "We're withdrawing south to the vehicles." The team began a fighting retreat, providing cover fire as they moved back toward their vehicles. Just then, a powerful explosion erupted beside the lead vehicle, lifting its front end several feet off the ground before it crashed back down. Black smoke billowed from the engine compartment. "IED, IED," someone shouted. Sarah quickly assessed the situation. The first vehicle had been rendered unusable. 2 soldiers were wounded, one clutching his bloody leg while another appeared dazed from the concussion. They needed to withdraw south immediately, but that presented its own dangers. "Captain," Sarah called to Rivera, who was directing covering fire, "we need to check the southern road. It's a perfect spot for an ambush, and probably lined with IEDs." Rivera nodded grimly, recognizing the logic. "Donovan, check the southern road." Donovan quickly grabbed his equipment and started moving forward, staying low. However, he had only taken a few steps when a sniper bullet whistled past his head, striking the ground inches from his foot. He immediately dropped flat. "Damn it, we're too exposed," cursed Donovan, crawling back to cover. "Can't advance without getting shot." The situation was rapidly deteriorating. Wounded men needed evacuation. Taliban fire was intensifying, and their only escape route was likely mined. Air support was at least 30 minutes out, and reinforcements would take even longer. Sarah turned to Rivera, who was trying to coordinate defense while planning extraction.
"Captain, let me check the road."
Rivera looked at her in surprise, then glanced at the intensifying fire around them.
Mitchell, this isn't training. This is a real firefight with real casualties.
I know, sir, but it's our only option right now. Someone needs to clear that road, and I can do it. Donovan can't approach without being targeted, and the others are needed here to provide cover fire. Rivera studied her face for a moment, weighing the dire situation against his reservations. Finally, he nodded. All right, Mitchell, but be careful. If you see any suspicious object, fall back and report. Don't try to be a hero. I stopped trying to be a hero a long time ago, sir, Sarah replied, though Rivera couldn't possibly understand the weight behind her words. Sarah gathered her EOD equipment and checked her sidearm. Then, using the disabled vehicle as initial cover, she began moving toward the southern road, staying low and using every available bit of terrain for concealment. Bullets kicked up dirt around her, but she moved with purpose. The road passed through a narrow passage between two hills, a perfect location for secondary IEDs. Sarah was certain they had rigged this one. She carefully scanned the first 50 meters, sweeping her metal detector in practiced arcs, while watching for telltale signs of disturbed earth. Then suddenly, the detector gave a warning tone in her earpiece. Sarah carefully examined the ground where the detector had signaled. She gently brushed away the loose dirt and revealed the edge of a pressure plate. The first IED, EOD-1 to base, she reported via radio. First IED detected. Pressure plate type, probably 5 to 10 kilos of explosive. Starting disarming procedure. Sarah began examining the explosive carefully, following standard EOD protocols. But as she exposed more of the device, her experienced eye caught details that sent a chill down her spine. This wasn't a typical Taliban device. The wiring configuration was sophisticated, the pressure plate more sensitive than usual, and several additional components had been added to the basic design. Base, there's a booby trap here. Standard procedure might not work, she reported, keeping her voice calm despite the implications. Donovan's voice came over the radio, still maintaining his condescending tone despite the situation. Hey, beauty, if it's too complicated for you, let me handle it. Sarah didn't respond to the taunt. She was too focused on the device before her, mentally mapping its components and comparing them to designs she had encountered before. And then, with a jolt of recognition, she understood exactly what she was looking at. This wasn't just any sophisticated IED. It was a design she had encountered during classified operations, a model designed specifically to counter EOD teams, neutralize one bomb, and all the others detonate automatically. Base, this is a chain system, she said, her voice now carrying the unmistakable authority of absolute certainty. When we neutralize one IED, the others are designed to trigger. This is a professional military design, not standard Taliban work. Rivera's voice came back, tension evident. How bad is it? Sarah carefully examined the road ahead with her equipment. The detector was registering multiple signatures at regular intervals. Very bad, sir. I can see at least 7 IEDs on the road, all connected to each other. This is a sophisticated anti-clearance system. There was a long pause before Rivera responded. Mitchell, fall back. We'll find another way out of here. But Sarah knew there was no other way. The hills were too steep for the vehicles. The wounded couldn't be moved far on foot, and reinforcements were too distant. No, sir, I can handle it. Her voice was calm but resolute. Mitchell, that's an order. Fall back. Rivera's voice was sharp with concern and command authority. For a brief moment, Sarah considered obeying, but deeper than her military training was her commitment to saving lives, a commitment that had defined her secret career. Sarah switched off her radio. Then she opened a hidden compartment in her EOD kit and removed tools that no standard EOD technician would recognize, specialized equipment from her classified past. In her mind, she went back 5 years to a dark basement in Fallujah, Iraq. There, operating under the code name Ghost Surgeon, she had neutralized a similar chain system. At that time, she was part of a CIA Special Activities Division team, so classified that even most high-ranking Pentagon officials weren't aware of its existence. Before being forced into this cover identity, she had been the most elite explosive specialist in America's covert operations community. Her official record listed 147 neutralized complex explosives across 3 continents. She was known as the Ghost Surgeon because she could dismantle the most complex explosive devices with a surgeon's precision. Her extraordinary career had ended 5 years ago during an operation in Baghdad that went wrong. Her identity had been exposed, and she had been given a new identity and integrated into regular military units. Now, on a dusty road in Helmand, with lives hanging in the balance, the Ghost Surgeon took her place. Sarah identified the main control circuit of the first IED, the primary node in the chain system. If neutralized properly, it would prevent the cascade effect from triggering the other devices. With steady hands that belied the danger, she positioned her specialized tools and began disarming the device using techniques unknown to conventional EOD teams. Each wire, each connection required perfect precision. When she severed the final wire, she held her breath for a long moment. The device gave a soft click as the triggering circuit disconnected. The first and most critical IED had been neutralized. EOD 1 to base. She reopened her radio. First IED neutralized. Moving on to the others. Rivera's voice came back immediately, relief evident despite his anger at her disobedience. "Mitchell, we've been trying to reach you. Don't ever cut communications again. But good work. Continue with extreme caution." Sarah moved forward to the second IED, which presented different challenges. Beyond the standard pressure plate, it incorporated a sophisticated motion sensor. It was a design she had encountered only once before, during an operation that officially never happened. She successfully neutralized the second, third, and fourth IEDs in sequence, each more complex than the last. To Sarah, this was almost meditative, a deadly dance she had performed countless times before. By the time she reached the fifth IED, the physical toll was becoming evident. Sweat soaked her uniform in the oppressive heat, and without her protective gear, deliberately left behind to allow greater mobility, she was completely exposed. "Mitchell, status report." Rivera's voice came through, tension evident. "Working on the fifth IED now, sir. 2 more to go after this one. Reinforcements are approaching your position. ETA 20 minutes. Can you hold position?" "Affirmative. Almost done with this one." Sarah completed neutralizing the fifth device and moved to the sixth, the most complex yet. It incorporated multiple redundant triggering systems and a sophisticated anti-tampering mechanism. When she completed disarming the sixth IED, her hands were beginning to tremble slightly from the prolonged tension and concentration. One final device remained, the largest and potentially most dangerous one. As Sarah approached the final IED, her trained eye immediately spotted a critical difference. This device incorporated an active electronic component she hadn't seen in the others, a digital timer display, already counting down. "Base, the last IED contains an active timer," she reported, her voice tight. "And it's running. 4 minutes remaining." "Mitchell, fall back immediately," Rivera ordered. "That's too dangerous to approach with the limited time." But Sarah knew retreat wasn't an option. The blast radius of this device would likely reach their position anyway, and the wounded wouldn't be able to move quickly enough. "Negative, sir. I need to handle this now." Sarah attempted to stop the timer using conventional methods, but quickly determined the system was locked down. Standard EOD procedures would be useless against this level of technology. With barely 3 minutes remaining, Sarah made a decision that would have been impossible for any regular EOD technician. From a hidden compartment in her kit, she removed a device that resembled a small tablet computer with several specialized ports, equipment developed by CIA Technical Operations. "Mitchell, what are you doing?" Rivera asked, likely watching through binoculars from his position. "One last option, sir. Trust me." Sarah connected the specialized device to the IED's control panel and began rapidly entering commands. This was essentially a military-grade hacking tool designed to interface with and override electronic detonation systems. The timer continued its merciless countdown. 2:30. Back at the defensive position, all eyes were on Sarah's distant figure hunched over the device. Donovan watched through his rifle scope, his earlier mockery forgotten. "Where did she learn to do that?" he muttered in disbelief. The timer reached the final minute, 1:15. Sarah's fingers flew across the device's interface, trying various intrusion protocols. Then, a high-pitched beep signaled success. The system had gained access to the IED's control mechanism. With swift, practiced movements, Sarah entered the final command sequence and watched as the timer froze at 0:42. She had gained control of the device's electronics but still needed to physically disarm it. Working quickly but methodically, she severed the connection between the main explosive charge and the detonator. Then she disabled the backup circuits and finally separated the explosive material from the triggering mechanisms entirely. EOD 1 to base, she radioed, the relief evident in her voice. Final IED neutralized. Road is clear for evacuation. A moment of stunned silence followed. Then cheers and applause erupted over the radio. The team had witnessed what many EOD veterans would have considered impossible, the disarming of 7 sophisticated interconnected IEDs under enemy fire by a single technician. Outstanding work, Mitchell. Rivera's voice boomed through the radio. All units, prepare for immediate evacuation. Load the wounded first. Move out as soon as ready. The convoy reorganized quickly, with the wounded loaded into the remaining vehicles. As Sarah returned to the team's position, she was met with looks of astonishment and newfound respect. No one called her beauty now. They had witnessed something that transcended gender or rank, pure expertise in its most critical application. When they returned to Kandahar Air Base, Sarah was immediately summoned to the commander's office. Colonel James Harrison, the base commander, was waiting along with a stern-looking man in civilian clothes. Lieutenant Mitchell, Colonel Harrison began, his expression unreadable. Captain Rivera has briefed me on your extraordinary actions today. You neutralized 7 sophisticated IEDs under enemy fire, saving your entire team in the process. Sarah stood at attention. I was doing my job, sir. However, the colonel continued, Rivera also mentioned that you used non-standard equipment that no one in the unit recognized, and you displayed technical knowledge and skills far beyond standard EOD training. The civilian in the corner stood up and placed a file on the colonel's desk. This explains why, Colonel. The colonel opened the file and his eyebrows rose progressively as he read. After a long moment, he looked up at Sarah with new understanding. Sarah Mitchell, codename Ghost Surgeon, CIA Special Activities Division Counter-Terrorism Unit, active duty from 2000, officially credited with neutralizing 147 complex explosive devices across 3 continents. 3 medals of valor, all classified. He closed the file slowly. I had no idea we had someone of your caliber assigned to a standard EOD unit. The Pentagon is very interested in reactivating your specialized skills, Captain Mitchell, said the civilian, emphasizing her real rank. A new joint task force is being formed to counter the increasing sophistication of IEDs we're encountering. They want you to lead it. A week later, Sarah Mitchell, now officially restored to her rank of captain, was preparing to leave Kandahar Air Base. The 73rd EOD unit had formed an honor guard on the tarmac to see her off. Captain Rivera stepped forward and gave her a formal salute. Captain Mitchell, it was an honor to serve with you, even briefly, he said, genuine respect now evident in his voice. Sarah returned the salute crisply. The honor was mine, Captain Rivera. As she moved down the line, she came face to face with Sergeant Donovan, who looked distinctly uncomfortable. Captain Mitchell, he began awkwardly, I want to apologize for everything, for calling you pretty face and, well, for being an ass. Sarah smiled slightly. It's okay, Sergeant. Actually, I was thinking about Pretty Face as my new code name. Has a certain irony to it, don't you think? Donovan laughed, relief evident on his face. No way, ma'am. You'll always be the ghost surgeon to us. That's a name that commands respect. As her transport plane lifted off from the runway, Sarah gazed down at the harsh landscape of Afghanistan. This assignment had meant to be an anonymous posting, a quiet place to serve out her career under a new identity. Instead, it had become the path back to her true self. That day in Helmand, under enemy fire with 7 deadly devices before her, Sarah Mitchell hadn't just neutralized IEDs. She had reclaimed her identity, her purpose, and her rightful place. Now I ask you, have you ever known someone like Sarah Mitchell? Someone who was excluded, belittled, but had incredible talents hidden beneath the surface? Share in the comments. Because these stories need to be remembered, these people need to be honored. Thank you for watching Best Honor Stories. If this story touched you, share it, subscribe, and help these silent heroes' voices continue to be heard. We'll see you in the next story.